Tim is going to say a few things, and then he's going to invite your comments. And a lot of you were here this morning, so you heard the types of questions that were being asked. I got to know Tim when he was quite young, and he was a young student at Claremont McKenna College. He comes from Pomona. He'll tell you all about that. He was with us. If you're there at a college for, I think, a month, you become an alum. But he was there for quite a bit longer, but he did transfer, and he'll tell you about that. And so now he is running for mayor of Pomona. And I want to tell you that this is something that I personally invited you to, because the mayor, the incumbent mayor, is running again, but he knew very well that if he didn't come today to the meeting, then Tim would not be able to talk. And so this is his way of handling issues. So, Tim, it's all yours.
You're not a little biased there, are you, Jill? No comment from Jil Stark. Good afternoon, everyone. First off, just thank you. Thank you for being here and spending part of your afternoon, or at least an hour with me. I really appreciate it. Earlier, when I had the opportunity to give my opening, I said a few words, and I'll be really brief with a little of my background. But I feel very honored to be here. And I'm a Pomona product, Pomona boy. I grew up in the city of Pomona and attended Montview Elementary, Emerson Middle School, and Pomona High School back in the 1980s. And a little story. When I worked, or should I say when I attended Emerson Middle School, I used to walk through an old neighborhood called Lincoln Park. As it turns out, my father was a school teacher. Now, my father went to college when he was 30 years old. He had a job at Head Start where he was a janitor. And there were some programs that were just being developed. And the person that headed up Head Start was a professor at San Fernando State, now called Cal State Northridge. And he told my father, Miguel, father to I get to be born 30 years old, said, Miguel, we can help you go to college. So my dad went, what is now Cal State Northridge. He graduated. And my dad grew up in the projects in the San Fernando, Coima area. And so he had no idea what he was going to do because he was largely a laborer and he worked in the fields. But that education was a crucial factor in my success as a young person. Well, when my dad graduated back in 1969, 1970, he asked his mentor, what should I do? And his mentor said, yeah, we need more Mexican-American teachers. And so as it happened, my father went to USC as part of a program to train, urban education program to train my father. He graduated, and one of the first places he came was Pomona. And he never left, and we never left. So I arrived in Pomona as a 9-year-old and grew up, as I mentioned, in the city. And so I remember walking that neighborhood from Emerson to Lincoln, where my dad taught. And I always dreamed, because it didn't look like my neighborhood, Lincoln Park, but I remember walking through that neighborhood and imagining one day that I would get the opportunity to live there. It also didn't hurt there was a young lady that I really liked that lived Lincoln as well, and so I'd pass by and I'd say hi to her on my way to Lincoln Elementary. And now my wife and I live in the old Lincoln Park area, and I'm really, really happy to say that. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit. We have a good friend, Tom, William.
Yeah, Bill Grant.
Bill Grant, some of you may know him, and he told me a story, actually told several of us a story about his desire to want to live near the Lincoln Park Circle, because he lived over, I think, on Monroe or Madison, one of the streets that's a little outside of the Lincoln Park area, and this was in the late 60s, but he wanted to move closer to the Circle, and as it turns out, it was very expensive. I think he said it was like $22,000. And that his place was worth maybe about $14,000. And somebody suggested the idea of going to Claremont, because it was cheaper on 12th Street. It was cheaper on 12th Street in Claremont than it was in Pomona. And his dad's not even kind of foolish to begin with, the idea of going from 14,000 to 22,000. Well, anyways, he ended up buying a home over in Claremont on 12th Street. Well, that home on 12th Street is worth a lot more today than it is in the Lincoln Park Circle. Although I have to say it is a beautiful area, the Lincoln Park area. And so something has radically changed in our city. And I'll just kind of give you a little background on what I think that is. You may all be aware that Pomona historically, pre-World War II, was largely an agricultural community. That was its economic engine. Post-World War II was the aerospace industry, General Dynamics. When General Dynamics left Pomona, I believe it left an economic vacuum in our city that we're still recovering from. So a lot of the challenges that you see in the city are really the result of really not finding what that economic engine is. And you had a chance to hear from some of the other council, potential council members, what some of those issues are. And I won't go into all of those. But I really feel like if we're going to move the city forward, we need to find what that economic engine is. And I believe that where it lies is in our health and wellness industry. We have 3 major institutions in the city of Pomona that are all addressing issues around health and wellness, and particularly the life sciences. We have a Western University Medical School. We have Pomona Valley Hospital. We have Casa Colina Rehabilitation Center. And we're surrounded by world-class universities like the Claremont College, Harvey Mudd, Pomona College, Cal Poly Pomona, which has a fantastic engineering program. There is no reason why Pomona cannot develop an enterprise zone, a business zone, where we can begin developing the types of products that are helping those 3 institutions. But not only those 3 institutions, but institutions regionally and if not nationally. And so I think a lot of our challenges stem from some of the fact that, as Deborah raised, our revenues, we're actually going to be down $1 million+. And what that means is that it means a cut in services. And so while we're trying to address those very real social challenges that we face, we're seeing our budget being reduced. I think that the Gardens presents a golden opportunity for the city of Pomona to engage its residents. That's why I'm here. There's tremendous wisdom in this room. There's tremendous experience in this room. I don't believe that our mayor has engaged this community. And that's why I'm here. Because I want to be a bridge between great things that are going on in our city and to try to build that bridge with you so that we can see some of those opportunities as we try to really reimagine Pomona, as we try to reinvent Pomona. Because as mayor, I can't do it alone. I'm really going to need the help of all members of our community. I'll give you just one very concrete example. I direct a nonprofit program called Bright Prospect that helps young people from this community go to and graduate from college. We started with 12 students, and we now have served over 3,000 students. These are kids whose parents are gardeners. I would imagine some of the kids who work, some of the folks who work here at the Garden. They're Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Swarthmore, Amherst, Williams, the Claremont, Cal Poly, Mount SAC, Citrus. And we work with high school students. And as you probably know, some areas of Pomona, there's a tremendous blight. There's a need to clean up the community. Well, I want to engage our young people to be part of that solution, to cleaning up our neighborhoods, to cleaning up our businesses. And when I talk to the young people, because I get the opportunity to work with them, I ask them, is this something that you would be willing to do? And they said, Tim, absolutely. I want to give back to my community. I want to feel a sense of ownership from my community. And I also want that to be also from you. That I understand that over 300 plus folks live in the Pomona side of the Gardens. And I'm not sure to what degree you feel a connection to the city. But I really feel it's my responsibility, rather than me expecting you to come to me, that I'm here for you. And that I'm really here to listen to you about how together we build that bridge. And so that's just a little about me, a little bit about my vision for the city. There's a lot of work to be done, but Pomona is a city of 153,000 people. We have and the institutions we have in our city. We have the Fairplex. We have the three medical institutions I mentioned. We have Cal Poly Pomona. This is a city that's rich in resources, and yet we continue to lag behind. And I really think, as I said earlier, it's an absence of leadership. We need new leadership in our city. And I hope at the end of the day, when you decide on November 8th, that you will give me strong consideration. So with that said, I think what I'd like to do, Jill, if it's okay. Tom, do you want to say a couple words? Okay, just for folks, okay. If I'd really like to take questions from you and really you thinking about how you would like to engage our city. Are there ideas that you have that you'd be willing to share? Or if you want to address any of the issues, some of the social issues that we face, I'd be happy to address those as well. Okay.
You mentioned that you talk with the young people. Do you speak Spanish? Are you bilingual?
Sí puedo hablar español. Sí hablo un poquito español, no hablo muy bien, pero mis padres, ellos, they were born here. But my mom's family is originally from Michoacán, Mexico. My dad's from New Mexico.
So that probably helps.
It does. And, you know, keep in mind that Pomona is a fascinating place. I don't know if you're aware of this, but so there's the old Lincoln Park, Wilton Heights area of old homes. There's the post-World War II ranch-style homes that were built, right? And then there's that third piece of Phillips Ranch and Mountain Meadows. And so socioeconomic diversity is present in Pomona. You do have pockets where you have low-income families. And then you have pockets where you have professional people who are attorneys and doctors and business owners. Is how do you build a community with such diversity? And I think that's the strength of Pomona. Because in fact, if we're able to lift our low-income families, guess what that does for the rest of the community? I mean, a lot of our families, their livelihood is tied up into their homes through their equity. And if we're improving the conditions of our most vulnerable members of our community, that only helps everyone else. So I do speak some Spanish.
I have a question.
Oh.
Today, we learned that the average age in Pomona is under 30 years old. And also, it has the lowest income in our county of $17,800. But if the majority of the people are so young, that lower income makes a little more sense to me than it did before. And can you speak just a moment on, I had no idea that the average age of the city was under 30 years old. Was that a correct statement to start with?
That is a correct statement. And I think part of that has to do with affordable housing in our city. So I think that's where some of that comes from. A young family just getting started, it's a lot more expensive to live in Claremont or Laverne, or particularly some of the foothill communities. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the program director for a nonprofit in Pomona called Bright Prospect. And one of the ways I think we could begin to address the issue that you just raised, Jill, is it can be a brain drain for a community when you have young people who are going off to college and they don't return back. And so I want to be more intentional about how we engage our college graduates. Because in fact, their parents live in the city. They come back, sometimes they'll live with their parents, they'll help pay the bills. I've had a number of students who have helped their parents buy their very first home. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have served over 3,000 students. Imagine bringing those students back to live in this community, to work here, to shop here, to start a business here, and become a part of the civic and community leadership. What happens is, you know, when you saw when General Dynamics left, certainly there were community leaders that emerged, but I also think we also lost some treasures in our community. And some of them are probably living right here in the garden. And that has an impact on the community. And when you have that political vacuum, that economic vacuum, it allows other folks to step in. And you sometimes get a type of politics that's not always in the best interest of our community. And so I really feel there's an opportunity, for me particularly, to be more intentional about bringing these students back. One of the things I'd like to do is to host a gathering after they've graduated and connect them to the resources that are available in the community, whether it's maybe perhaps buying their first home, maybe maybe they're interested in graduate school at Claremont Graduate University or Cal Poly Pomona, but that they begin to see Pomona as a place where they can buy their first home, move their way up, and raise their family. Because they know that the types of things that you may see in a Claremont or a Upland or a Glendora are the very same types of things that we can be doing in Pomona with good, sound leadership.
I just wanted to put forward my own personal situation here. Jan and I went to Pomona College. My folks went to Pomona College. We lived, and in those days, the city, in the 40s and 50s, the city of Pomona was quite a place, and this is where a lot of our focus was. We've been here at the Gardens now for almost 6 years, and we have had no focus on the city of, we have not, others may have, on the city of Pomona. Most of it that we see is out Foothill Boulevard, and rarely the rest of it. And you mentioned a connection with the Gardens, and I'm so pleased that you have it. How do you see, and I hope, I don't know if others here have the same kind of experience, but how do you see getting us connected?
And that's a great question. And I don't want to throw this question back at the group, but I'll at least offer one avenue. But I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the ways that you would like to see yourself connected to the city of Pomona? And maybe you don't necessarily want that. Maybe it's just the connection is you have somebody like me as mayor of the city to come once a year and to let you know how the city's doing. Right? So there's different ways of engagement. I'm a board member for the Daw Center for the Arts. It's in downtown Pomona. They have some great exhibitions. No worries. They have some great exhibitions at the Daw. And so they host, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they host second Saturdays, where all the galleries are open. There's music, there's the art. It's a really festive place. Well, I would love to get you down there. I understand that you have some buses. There's also through the Downtown Pomona Owners Association, there's a trolley that could go back and forth. I think they have a couple. But if you could begin to talk about Pomona, right, and you could begin to be advocates for Pomona, ambassadors for Pomona, that there's actually positive things going on in the community, that's huge. Right? Because you have friends. And your friends have time, and perhaps maybe they want to go down there, and maybe they want to have a meal down there, and they want to take in the arts, and they want to take in the music. I think that's one of the ways in which we can engage the folks here at the Gardens. But it's not the only way. So, but is it okay, Joe, if I ask the folks from, and they're called the Gardeners?
Yes.
And by the way, earlier when she was talking about the Gardeners, I was thinking, okay, she's talking about the guys who go around and cut the grass. And I'm thinking, wow, that's rather interesting. Okay, great question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Kathy Henley Erickson, and two things. One is, I think we all should stop saying things like down to Pomona. There's something about that has a negative ring.
As opposed to, let's go up to Pomona.
Well, Pomona. It's true, Pomona is south of where I'm standing right now, but on the map, okay, so, but I really want to change that in my own speech as well. And I would love to have you or somebody you would designate give a history of Pomona. I can picture the individual neighborhoods you're talking about, but I'd love to see a map and historical kinds of information about those kinds of neighborhoods and what's there. I'd love to see a home tour. I'd love to, those kinds of things.
So let's go visit Old Town Pomona.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go visit Old Town Pomona, and believe it or not, Lincoln Park has a home tour. So what we need to do, and maybe it is somebody who's designated, but I really see myself as a bridge, right? As a person who can connect folks who are doing very interesting things, but are not always aware of what those events are, or what those opportunities are. So I'd love to be able to do that. You bet. More ideas. more ideas on how we may be able to connect the gardeners to visit our old town Pomona or other parts as well.
The thing that frustrates me is we don't have any communication with Pomona if you don't have a progress bulletin. In Claremont, we have the Courier, in Pomona, nothing. They have a paper, I understand. I talked to the mayor one time at a luncheon. He said he'd get some up here to our place, never came. I talked to, what's her name, Martin,
Deborah.
and he said the same thing, nothing came.
Okay. And I know all of you are probably aware of this, but there used to be the old Progress Bulletin. Little background, I was a paper boy. Worked at 10. I guess it was legal back then. I'm not sure what it was, but I started working at 10, and for about 4 years, I had 3 paper routes. And I remember after school, I'd deliver the paper, and then on Saturday and Sunday mornings, I had to wake up really early. But it was definitely a Pomona-centered paper. When the Daily Report essentially merged to become the Daily Bulletin, and the reality is that paper in general has been bought out by one company. In all these communities throughout the Southern California area, you don't tend to get that Pomona-centric story. And so the only thing that really exists at the moment is a paper called La Nueva Voz. And it is in English, but it gives you an idea of what are some of the activities that are going on in the community. But again, I think there's an opportunity for our city to engage you by being more regular participants in what you're doing. And if there's a way for us to get that information, which is really simple, right, is to get that information to you, the communication lines will be improved considerably, and I think we'll see more engagement from the community. In the absence of a newspaper like the old Progress Bulletin, I think we have to sort of think about, are there some, well, let me ask you this, do you guys communicate electronically much with cell phones? And so, and I say that respectfully because I don't want to assume anything, but I think that's one of the ways in which we may be able to get you that information about what's happening in the city, updates. In fact, I think it's crucial, and when you think about transparency in our city, is what are we doing? And how are we giving you the opportunity to be engaged is really important. So I hope I've answered your question. Yes.
I'd like you to bring the young students to us that you're working with.
Done.
Good answer.
But by the way, the exchange between our young people and people with tremendous wisdom is so important. As you may be well aware, we have a lot of hardworking immigrant families in our community. Many of them whose parents never attended college because in fact the door was closed to them in their home country. And so they don't always know the process or how it works. In many respects, that's why a Bright Prospect exists. But I'd love for them to be able to connect to you so that you share your story about what you did and connect them to the resources, at least give them an idea of how they can have success in life. That would be great. I'd love to connect. One last thing related to that. I have this idea of, take a step back, I didn't grow up listening to classical music. Now keep in mind, this was back in the day where you had 8-track tapes and you had cassette tapes, and they were a little more expensive, unlike today where you can listen to Pandora and listen to every type of music you want to listen to. Our kids today have opportunities we never had. But if you listen to classical music, a friend introduced me to it. I went to see Bernstein, West Side Story, and I was smitten. And ever since, I try to go out to the bowl or to Disney concert hall as often as I can. Anyways, there was a group of students performing called the Venezuelan Youth Orchestra. It was the Bolivar, Simon Bolivar Youth Orchestra, which is Judy Mel came out of that orchestra. I was blown away. They were amazing. Well, I have this idea that why couldn't we develop a world-class youth orchestra in Pomona, where they become the face of our city, they become the voice of our city, they become ambassadors to our city, and they perform at the Fox Theater. And we have folks from Claremont and from Upland and from Pomona who come to see these kids perform. And the thing that it does is it bridges it bridges the gap that sometimes exists in terms of the diversity of Pomona, where the folks from maybe Phillips Ranch don't always connect with the folks from South Pomona, or the folks from South Pomona don't always connect with the folks in North Pomona. And that really, in fact, what brings our community together is our children. Right? And it brings them together not just with our city, but also with the outlying cities. Could you imagine going to downtown Pomona? I'm sorry. Could you imagine visiting Old Town Pomona, right? And hearing a world-class youth orchestra? Would you tell your friends about it? Right? And if we can assure you that you're going to be safe, because that's a factor. But that Pomona needs to draw upon all these treasures that we have in the community. And I just think that's one of the ways in which we do it. There's a question here and then back here. Yes.
In response to,
Oh, right here, I'm sorry, I was pointing at the wrong person. You had our hand up for a while.
You, me?
Yes.
Okay. So I would love to have a list that, and I'd be happy to post it and help with it, but a list of cultural events. I do go to the DAW. I do go to the American Museum of Art.
A fine museum. It's one of the largest ceramic museums west of the Mississippi. One of the largest. It's one of the largest ceramic museums in the country, and it's right in Pomona.
And it's free on second Saturday, if you haven't been. And I would like to know more about the various events upcoming, the house tours, various festivals in the city, and I understand that there is a Pomona Old Town tour put on by the Historical Society or something. I don't know when that is, and I don't know when the trolleys run, and those kinds of things. If we could create the list and maintain it with the updates, people would probably be interested. There's probably many other things that people would love to know about, the musical things, and even some of the churches promote events. And those could be incorporated because the events themselves are not denominational.
So we need a liaison between somebody from the garden and the mayor's office. There is no mayoral staff. But you're hired. That's very solvable. And it really boils down to the value we place on communication. Because there's a missed opportunity by us not engaging the folks here at the garden. As Jill and Tom and Brian and I were talking earlier, there's tremendous wisdom in this community, tremendous life experiences in this community, and we need to connect that, particularly to a young city. And we have the opportunity to do that, I believe, with new leadership.
I've been a friend of Deborah Martin's for some years now, and I got on her electronic list, and so I've been getting notices of all kinds of things that happen at the moment. It could be that the person who's from our district, or perhaps the mayor's office, could do this electronically. But I've been getting notices of cleanup days in parks and opportunities to meet with the chief of police and all kinds of really valuable things that others would enjoy too.
So I think if it's okay with the folks here, is that certainly make it available electronically, but also make it just in the paper. I mean, I know for my parents, my father's 78, and he's still riding his bike around the neighborhood. But electronically, it wouldn't work for him. He just doesn't know how to work a cell phone, doesn't know how to go on the internet. But he certainly knows how to look at a paper, because I know that he eats at the Palomar Community Center for lunch. And he knows what's being served that day at the Palomar Community Center lunch. So, yes.
Perhaps a broader distribution of the voice, whatever that.
Oh, La Nueva Voz.
The new voice.
Okay. Yeah, and in fact, probably what we can do is recommend to them that they bring the paper up here. Because I have to tell you, when I go out, sometimes I'll see stacks of them that are unused. And I think that probably in this community, there's a rich reading culture, right? And you want to know what's going on in the community, and I think that's great. So we can facilitate that. Sorry, now.
Sorry, it goes right on after what they just said. Do you have a website for those people here?
Yes. If you go to www.timsandoval.com, you will see a lot about me and the One Pomona campaign.
No, I mean the city.
Oh.
I'm glad you know that too. Pomona, because also those things are listed in the Courier, interestingly enough.
Sure.
About Pomona.
Yeah, so the city has its own website. Is it friendly, user-friendly? Is it accessible? I think it needs some work, but there is a website. And if you go to the city of Pomona, you put that in, you won't have any trouble finding it. I think that's another way, that's another place where we can be, the information's there. The question is, where can you find that information on the website? Unfortunately, sometimes city websites are not always user-friendly to the user. Great.